Happy Thursday and welcome back to Kiva Kids Cozy Corner. I cannot believe still mid-May. Holy cow. Anyway, we actually started a new story, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And today we're going to read about the golden tickets. So here we go, chapter 5, the golden tickets. You mean people are actually going to be allowed to go inside the factory? Cried Grandpa Joe. Read us what it says quickly. All right, said Mr. Bucket, smoothing out the newspaper. Listen. Evening Bulletin. Mr. Willy Wonka, the candy-making genius whom nobody has seen for the last 10 years, sent out the following notice today. I, Willy Wonka, have decided to allow 5 children, just 5, mind you, and no more, to visit my factory this year. These lucky 5 will be shown around, personally by me, and they will be allowed to see all the secrets of the magic of my factory. Then at the end of the tour, as a special present, all of them will be given enough chocolates and candies to last them for the rest of their lives. So watch out for golden tickets. 5 golden tickets have been printed on golden paper, and these 5 golden tickets have been hidden underneath the ordinary wrapping paper of 5 ordinary candy bars. These 5 candy bars may be anywhere, in any shop, in any street, in any town, in any country in the world. Upon any counter where Wonka's candies are sold. And the 5 lucky finders of these 5 golden tickets are the only ones who will be allowed to visit my factory and see what it's like inside, to see what it's like now inside. Good luck to you all and happy hunting. Signed, Willy Wonka. That man's dotty, muttered Grandma Josephine. He's brilliant, cried Grandpa Joe. He's a magician. Just imagine what will happen now. The whole world will be searching for those golden tickets. Everyone will be buying Wonka's candy bars in the hope of finding one. They'll sell more than ever before. Oh, how exciting it would be to find one. And all the chocolate and candies you could eat for the rest of your life for free, said Grandpa George. Just imagine that. They'd have to deliver them in a truck, said Grandma Georgina. It makes me quite ill to think of it, said Grandma Josephine. Nonsense, cried Grandpa Joe. Wouldn't it be something, Charlie, to open a bar of candy and see a golden ticket glistening inside? It certainly would, Grandpa, but there isn't any hope, said Charlie sadly. I only get 1 bar a year. You never know, darling, Grandma Georgina said. It's your birthday next week. You have as much chance as anybody else. I'm afraid that simply isn't true, said Grandpa George. The kids who are going to find the golden tickets are the ones who can afford to buy candy bars every day. Our Charlie gets 1 a year. There isn't any hope. Chapter 6, the first 2 finders. The very next day, the first golden ticket was found. The finder was a boy called Augustus Gloop, and Mr. Bucket's evening newspaper carried a large picture of him in the front page. The picture showed a 9-year-old boy who was so enormously fat he looked as though he'd been blown up by a powerful pump. Great flabby folds of fat bulged from every part of his body and from his face like a monstrous ball of dough, with small, greedy, currant eyes peering out upon the world. The town in which Augustus Gloop lived, the newspaper said, had gone wild with excitement over their hero. Flags were flying from the windows, children had been given a holiday from school, and a parade was being organized in honor of the famous youth. I just knew Augustus would find a golden ticket, his mother told the newspaperman. He eats so many candy bars a day that it was almost impossible for him not to find one. Eating is his hobby, you know, that's all he's interested in. But still, that's better than being a hooligan or shooting off zip guns and things like that in his spare time now, isn't it? And, you know, what I always say is he wouldn't go on eating like this unless he needed his nourishment, now would he? It's all vitamins anyway. Oh, what a thrill it would be for him to visit Mr. Wonka's marvelous factory. Oh, we're just as proud can be. What a revolting woman, said Grandma Josephine. And a repulsive boy, said Grandma Georgina. Only 4 golden tickets left, said Grandpa George. I wonder who will get those. And now the whole country, indeed the whole world, seemed suddenly to be caught up in the mad candy buying spree. Everyone searching frantically for those precious remaining tickets. Fully grown women were seen going into sweet shops, buying 10 Wonka bars at a time and tearing off the wrappers. On the one spot, peering eagerly underneath for a glint of golden paper. Children were taking hammers and smashing their piggy banks and running out to the shops with handfuls of money. In one city, a famous gangster robbed a bank of $5,000 and spent the whole lot on candy bars that same afternoon, and when the police entered his house to arrest him, they found him sitting on the floor amidst mountains of candy dripping off the wrappers with the blade of a long dagger. Far off in Russia, a woman named Charlotte Roos claimed to have found the second golden ticket, but it was clearly a clever fake. In England, the most famous scientist, Professor Foulbody, invented a machine which he could tell you at once without opening the wrapper of the candy bar whether or not there was a golden ticket underneath it. The machine had a mechanical alarm shoot out with tremendous force that grabbed hold of anything and the slightest bit of gold inside it. And for a moment it seemed like the answer to everything, but unfortunately, while Professor was showing off the machine to the public and the candy counter of a large department store, the mechanical arm shot out and made a grab for a gold filling that was in the back of the tooth of a duchess who was standing nearby. And there was an ugly scene, and that machine was then smashed by the crowd. Suddenly, on the day before Charlie Bucket's birthday, the newspapers announced the second golden ticket had been found. The lucky person was a small girl called Veruca Salt, who lived with her rich parents in a great city far away. Once again, Mr. Bucket's evening newspaper carried a big picture of the finder. She was sitting between her beaming father and mother in the living room of their house, waving the golden ticket, grinning from ear to ear. Veruca's father, Mr. Salt, had eagerly explained to the newspapermen exactly how the ticket was found. "You see, fellers," he said, "as soon as my little girl told me that she simply had to have one of those golden tickets, I went out to the town and started buying up all the Wonka candy bars. I could lay my hands on thousands of them, it must have been, hundreds of thousands. I then had them loaded onto trucks and sent directly to my own factory. I'm in the peanut business, you see, and I've got about 100 women working for me over at my joint shelling peanuts for roasting and salting. And that's what they do all day long. These women sit there shelling peanuts. So I says to them, okay, girls, from now on, you can stop shelling peanuts and start shelling wrappers off of these crazy candy bars instead. And they did. I had every worker in the place yanking the paper off those bars, chocolate at full speed ahead from morning till night. But 3 days went by and we had no luck. Oh, it was terrible. My poor little Veruca. Sorry. Got more and more upset each day, and every time I went home, she would scream at me, "Where's my golden ticket? I want my golden ticket." And she would lie for hours on the floor, kicking and yelling the most disturbing way. Well, sir, I just hated seeing my little girl feel unhappy like that, so I vowed I would keep up the search until I got her what she wanted. And then suddenly, on the evening of the 4th day, one of the women workers yelled, "I've got it, a golden ticket." And I said, "Give it to me quick." And she did, and I rushed home and gave it to my darling Veruca. And now she's all smiles, and we're all happy in our home once again. "Ugh, that's even worse than the fat boy," said Grandma Josephine. "She needs a real good spanking," said Grandma Georgina. "I don't think the girl's father played that quite fair, Grandpa, do you?" Charlie murmured. "He spoils her," said Grandpa Joe, "and no good can ever come from spoiling a child like that, Charlie, you mark my words." "Come to bed, my darling," Charlie's mother said. "Tomorrow's your birthday, and don't forget that, so I expect you'll be up early for your present." "I am so sorry, you guys. I don't know where the yawns are coming from." "A Wonka candy bar?" cried Charlie. "It is a Wonka candy bar, isn't it?" "Yes, my love," his mother said. "Of course it is." "Oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if I found the third golden ticket inside?" Charlie said. "Bring it here when you get it," Grandpa Joe said. "Then we can all watch you take off the wrapping." Chapter 7, Charlie's Birthday. "Happy birthday," cried the four old grandparents as Charlie came in the room the next morning. Charlie smiled nervously and sat down at the edge of the bed. He was holding his present, his only present, very carefully in 2 hands. "Wonka's Wimple Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight," it said on the wrapper. The 4 old people, 2 at either end of the bed, propped themselves up on their pillows and stared with anxious eyes at the candy bar in Charlie's hand. Mr. and Mrs. Bucket came in and stood at the foot of the bed watching Charlie. The room became silent. Everybody was waiting now for Charlie to start opening his present. Charlie looked down at the candy bar. He ran his fingers slowly back and forth along the length of it, stroking it lovingly, and the shiny paper wrapper made little sharp crackling noises in the quiet room. Then Mrs. Bucket said gently, "You mustn't be too disappointed, my darling, if you don't find what you're looking for underneath the wrapper. You really can't expect to be as lucky as all that." "She's quite right," Mr. Bucket said, and Charlie didn't say a thing. "After all," Grandma Josephine said, "in the whole wide world, there are only 3 tickets left to be found. The thing to remember," Grandma Georgina said, "is whatever happens, you'll still have a bar of candy." "Wonka's Wimple Scrumptious Fudge Mellow Delight," cried Grandpa George. "It's the best of them all. You'll just love it." "Yes," Charlie whispered, "I know." "Just forget about all those golden tickets and enjoy the candy," Grandpa Joe said. "Why don't you do that?" They all knew it was ridiculous to expect that one poor little candy bar to have such a magic ticket inside, and they were trying gently and kindly as they could to prepare Charlie for the disappointment. But there was one other thing the grown-ups also knew. That however small the chance might be of striking lucky, the chance was there. The chance had to be there. This particular candy bar had as much chance as any other of having a golden ticket, and that is why the grandparents and the parents in the room were actually just as tense and excited as Charlie was, although they were pretending to be very calm. "You better go ahead and open it, or you'll be late for school," Grandpa Joe said. "Might as well get it over with," Grandpa George said. "Open it, my dear." Grandma Georgina said, "Please open it. You're making me jumpy." Very slowly, Charlie's fingers began to tear open one small corner of the wrapping paper. The old people in the bed all leaned forward, craning their little scraggly necks. Then suddenly, as though he couldn't bear the suspense any longer, Charlie tore the wrapping right down the middle, and there on his lap it fell, the light brown, creamy-colored chocolate candy bar. There was no sign of a golden ticket anywhere. "Well, that's that," said Grandpa Joe brightly. "It's just as we expected." Charlie looked up to find 4 old faces watching him intently in the bed. He smiled at all of them, a small, sad smile, and then he shrugged his shoulders and picked up the candy bar and held it out to his mother. He said, "Here, Mother, have a bit. We'll share it. I want everyone to taste it." "Certainly not," his mother said. And all the others cried, "No, no, no, we wouldn't dream of it. It's all yours." "Please," begged Charlie, turning around and offering it to Grandpa Joe. But neither he nor anyone else could take even a tiny bit. "It's time to go to school, my darling," Mrs. Bucket said, putting an arm around Charlie's skinny shoulders. "Come on, or you'll be late." Chapter 8, 2 more golden tickets found. That evening, Mr. Bucket's newspaper announced the finding of not only the 3rd, but also the 4th of the 2 golden tickets found today. 2 golden tickets found today, screamed the headlines. "Only 1 more left." "All right," said Grandpa Joe when the whole family had gathered in the old people's room after supper. "Let's hear who found it." "The 3rd ticket," read Mr. Bucket, holding the newspaper close to his face because his eyes were bad and he couldn't afford glasses. "The 3rd ticket was found by Miss Violet Beauregard. There was great excitement in the Beauregard household. When our reporter arrived at the interview, the lucky young lady, cameras were clicking, flashbulbs were flashing, and people were pushing and jostling to get every bit closer to the famous girl. And the famous girl was standing on a chair in the living room, waving the golden ticket madly at arm's length as though she were flagging a taxi. She was talking very fast and very loudly to everyone, but it was not easy to hear all that because she was chewing so fiercely on a piece of gum all at the same time. "I'm a gum chewer normally," she shouted, "but when I heard that these ticket things of Mr. Wonka's, I laid off the gum and switched to candy bars in the hopes of striking a lucky. Now, of course, I'm right back on gum. I just adore gum. I can't do without it. I munch on it all day long, except for a few minutes at meal times, and when I take it out, I stick it right behind my ear for safekeeping. I tell you the honest truth, I simply wouldn't feel comfortable if I didn't have a little wedge of gum to chew on at every moment of every day. I really wouldn't. My mother says it's not ladylike, and it looks ugly to see a girl's going up and down like mine do all the time, but I don't agree, and who is she to criticize anyway? Because if you ask me, I'd say her jaws are going up and down almost as much as mine are just from yelling at me every minute of the day." "Now, Violet," Miss Beauregard said from far off corner of the room where she was standing on the piano to avoid being trampled by the mob. "All right, Mother, keep your hair on," Miss Beauregard shouted. "And now," she went on, turning to the reporters again, it may interest you to know that this piece of gum I'm chewing right here at this moment, this one I've been working on, is for over 3 months solid. That's a record, it is. It's beaten the old record held by my best friend, Miss Cornelia Prince-Meisel. Oh, is she mad? It's the most treasured possession I have now, this piece of gum. It is. All nights I just stick it on the end of the bedpost, and it's as good as ever in the morning. It's a bit hard at first, maybe, but you know, as soon as you start chewing, it softens up after a while, after I've given it a few good chews. Before I started chewing the world record, I used to chew my piece of gum once a day, and I'd get used to it. I used to do it in our elevator on the way home from school. Why the elevator? Because I liked sticking a gooey piece of gum that I'd finished onto one of the elevator buttons, just so the next person came along and pressed the button and got my old gum on the end of his or her finger. Ha ha ha. Oh, that was a racket that kicked up some of them. You get the best results with women who have expensive gloves on. Oh yes, I'm thrilled to be going to Mr. Wonka's factory, and I understand that afterwards he's going to give me enough gum to last me the rest of my whole life. Whoopee, hooray. Beastly girl, said Grandma Josephine. Despicable, said Grandma Georgina. She'll come to a sticky end one day, just chewing all that gum. You see if she doesn't. And who got the 4th golden ticket, Daddy? Charlie asked. And that's where we'll leave off today. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. Be safe. Love you guys. Bye.